Wizard101 is an MMORPG that was released all the way back on September 2nd, 2008. My god, this game has been out for a while, and it's still going strong. And I mean rightfully so. This game has managed to bring in a very dedicated and loyal community and trap all of us in the nostalgia saw trap. Wizard101 is quite possibly my favorite game of all time. Actually, it is, now that I think about it. I've been playing this game since 2009, and it's crazy to think that I still log into this game today. Now, playing this game as a kid, I genuinely would just skip most of the dialogue and not pay attention to the story. Like many other people, I mainly just cared about being as strong as possible and having the best gear. But these past few weeks, I decided to not only go back through the game, but learn about the story and lore of Wizard101. Why everything is the way it is, why we go to these different worlds, and the history of why these worlds even exist to begin with. And today I wanted to share it with you guys, since a lot of people share the same sentiment. If you guys don't know, I'm Sniffy. In this video, we will be going through the entire Wizard101 Arc 1 story as well as the lore. I've been strongly debating whether to put all 4 arcs into one video, but I decided to split them up because I already have the entirety of the Arc 1 script done, and I don't want to keep you guys waiting for another few weeks for the rest of it to be done. Also, disclaimer, Grizzleheim will be part of the Arc 2 video and not this one, because with the inclusion of Wintertusk, I just felt as though it would go better with the Arc 2 video instead of this one. I'll also be giving my own personal thoughts on this arc at the end of this video, and at the end of part 4, I'll be ranking all the arcs from worst to best in my opinion. So get comfortable, grab a snack as we dive in to the full story and lore of Wizard101 Arc 1. I hope you all enjoy. The Spiral in Wizard101 was at one point one collective world named the First World. Unlike we know today, as in the present, the Spiral is separated into multiple worlds. This first world was ruled by 3 elder races: the Fire Dragons, the Frost Giants, and the Tritons. These 3 elder races were constantly at war with each other, resulting in the destruction of the First World. Because of this, Bartleby sang the Song of Creation, which not only put the 3 elder races to sleep, but also mended the now shattered worlds together into what we now know as the Spiral. In a world known as Avalon, Merle Ambrose and his companion Gamma the Owl found Bartleby and built Wizard City around him. Merle then set up schools and tracked down the best teachers to teach every school of magic. As time went on, Wizard City and Ravenwood was thriving, teaching plenty of young wizards the art of magic. Everything was seemingly going well until the life professor Sylvia Drake caught an incurable disease. Despite the efforts of her husband Malastair Drake, who was ironically the death school professor at the time, Sylvia eventually succumbed to her illness and tragically passed away. This devastated Malastair, which caused him to not only become very heartbroken, but descend into complete madness. He then decides to leave the Ravenwood school in pursuit to figure out a way to resurrect his wife, but not before ripping the death school from the main campus, sending it crashing down to Nightside far below. Malastair and Gamma become very worried as to what Malastair might do to disrupt the order of the Spiral, so they decide to search the known universe to find a willing young wizard to save the Spiral. Which, I mean, y'all are experienced, and why can't y'all and some other teachers do? Okay, anyway, eventually Merle found Earth, and of course, they found us. We then set out on our journey to stop Malastair. Because of the passing of his wife, Malastair fell into complete agony and starts to raise hell on the streets of Wizard City, causing an infestation of undead. Malastair wants to figure out a way to bring back his deceased wife, and he will do pretty much anything to bring her back. He finds out that there's an ancient relic known as the Krokonomicon, which has the power to bring her back. Malastair then goes on to steal Bartleby's Eye of History in his search for the Krokonomicon. The search inevitably leads him to a world known as Krokotopia. Krokotopia was a land that was once ruled by Manders. They lived peacefully until one day the Crocs arrived. Now, at first, the Crocs seemed pretty innocent. They just seemed really exhausted from wherever they came from. So because of this, the Manders helped any way they could, providing food and water and whatever other aid they can give. However, later on, of course, the Crocs began to abuse their help to the point of enslaving the Manders. Most of them, pretty much all of them, were treated poorly. In fact, even in the afterlife, their souls remained slaves. Now, while this is all going on, a Croc by the name of Alhazred was just wandering through the sands of Krokotopia one day, you know, just minding his business. He had an idea that he could blend elemental magic and spirit magic together, and thus balance magic was discovered. Alhazred then finds out about what his fellow Crocs did to the Manders and is absolutely disgusted in regards to the state of Krokotopia, so he decides to devise a group called the Order of the Fang, a group of individuals whose sole purpose is to restore peace to Krokotopia and bring down the Tuts' rule. The Order of the Fang were able to subdue the Tuts and drive them into a deep sleep. Alhazred would then go on to write the group's secrets and methods into what we now know as the Krokonomicon. After saving the Manders, he then began teaching the School of Balance to students all over the Spiral. And while he was eager to include his School of Magic into Ravenwood, he didn't want to leave Krokotopia in fear of the Tuts awakening again, which actually turned out to be a really good decision. Fast forward to the modern day, and Professor Winthrop and his team of scientists arrive in Krokotopia in search for its history. While excavating inside the Pyramid of the Sun, they accidentally awoke the angry Tuts, who quickly came to power once again. While this is happening, Malastair arrives in Krokotopia and searches for the Krokonomicon. Now, Professor Winthrop and his team have no idea where it is, so the next step is to speak to the Queen of the Tuts, Krokotopia. After her defeat, she explained that a long time ago, she put the Croconomicon in something known as the Sarcophagus of Souls, which is no longer in Krokotopia, but is instead in a museum in the world known as Marleybone, so we need to go there. Similar to humans, Marleybonians started out as tribal cave dwellers who were constantly at war with one another. One day, a brave dog named Burma rose up and conquered all the clans that were at war with each other. The dogs then began to work together. They transformed their society from being rooted in tribal warfare to being focused on art and science. This began an era of monarchy, unfortunately being ruled by corrupt kings and queens. Later down the road would be tough times for Marleybonians as the world became very war-stricken once again. It's unknown as to how this civil war started, however, it's obvious that the dogs were triumphant, as in the modern day, dogs are the only ones in Marleybone that have any political power and influence. After the war was over, interest in history and science slowly became more important to the people of Marleybone, and fast forward to the modern day, Marleybone has become a very powerful society. However, they suffer from a very prevalent problem of gang activity. This is because, like I said earlier, dogs are the only ones that have any political power in Marleybone. Species like cats and foxes are heavily discriminated against. They struggle to even make an honest living, and thus they have to resort to criminal activity to make anything of themselves. While this is going on, Malistaire arrives in Marleybone to steal the aforementioned Croconomicon, which is supposed to be locked inside the royal museum. Now, Malistaire actually couldn't steal it himself because the museum has a sort of anti-magic defense mechanism, so instead he teams up with the master criminal Meow Yardy. The cat criminal gangs break Meow Yardy out of prison despite our attempts to stop them. I just want to quickly point out that while we're sitting here hauling ass in Newgate prison trying to stop this dude, why are the guards just standing there doing nothing? They're all just looking at us chase this dude like, "Oi, listen, you can catch him, Wizard, he's not that far." Like, dog, this is... Okay, so anyway, Meow Yardy steals a Croconomicon from the Royal Museum and locks himself inside a Big Ben, awaiting Malistaire's return. And unfortunately, it's too late. Malistaire meets up with Meow Yardy and Big Ben and escapes with the Croconomicon. In order to carry out the rest of his plan, he needs to head to a world known as Dragonspyre. He needs to head to Dragonspyre because his ultimate goal is to revive the Dragon Titan, as his plan is that he's going to use the Dragon Titan's power to bring his wife back to life. The only spiral key to get to Dragonspyre, however, is held by Emperor Yoshihito, the ruler of a world known as Mooshu. Mooshu, similar to Krokotopia, is a very ancient world with a deep history. Long time ago, dragons actually once lived on Mooshu, and Emperor Ping formed the first empire of Mooshu using the power of a dragon. A rule was set in place that all future emperors of Mooshu would wield this dragon magic and would call themselves descendants of a dragon. Which, by the way, why this isn't a badge in the game, I'll never understand. This is just a missed opportunity. Anyway, so for thousands of years, Mooshu thrived in a period that many claim to be one of the greatest in its world's history. During the rule of Emperor Swang, the people of Mooshu began to develop magic for the commoners, which is interesting because up until that point, magic would usually be strictly reserved to government officials. So Mooshu was at peace for like a really long time, and this led to many new ideas in art. Mooshu ended up rediscovering the spiral and thus established trade agreements with other worlds. These agreements and treaties between worlds would greatly emphasize Mooshu's reputation of being a very friendly and cooperative world. However, the treaties did anger some of the warlords of Mooshu. They ended up mastering magic, and combined, they stormed the Jade Palace and imprisoned the current emperor at the time and took over for themselves. Now, their rule on the people of Mooshu was incredibly cruel. Later on, there were 3 more neighboring and warring clans who also began to learn magic on their own and rose to power. It got to a point where a lot of these clans got so powerful that Mooshu basically was just ran by them instead of an emperor. However, eventually the war between the 3 clans did eventually start to die down. This made a way for somewhat of a return to peace and prosperity for a little bit. Now, the samurai took this as an opportunity to seize control of Mooshu once more from the corrupt clan leaders. The samurai then went on to free Emperor Swang, who was still in prison this whole time. Fast forward 2 years later, and the current emperor Yoshihito comes to power. We then cut to the present, as unfortunately Malistaire was able to beat us to Mooshu and went to confront the emperor to obtain the spiral key to Dragonspyre. When the emperor refused, Malistaire placed a curse on him, putting him into a deep sleep. He then steals the key and flees to Dragonspyre. So now, in order for us to obtain the key to follow him, we must first heal the emperor with the help of the monks. We need 3 specific items in order to heal the emperor and reverse Malistaire's curse: the emperor's sword, pure water, and fruit from the tree of life. However, there's a big problem. Right after Malistaire put Emperor Yoshihito to sleep, everybody found out about it. So now local warlords and a bunch of evil men immediately sought to take over Mooshu for themselves in the absence of the emperor. 3 of these individuals in particular are ones we need to take down in order to gather the items we need to cure the emperor: Warlord Katsumori, Hideyoshi, and Kagemusha. To make our problems even worse, all 3 of them have been possessed by Oni. Warlord Katsumori has been possessed by the War Oni, Hideyoshi by the Plague Oni, and Kagemusha by the Death Oni, meaning that after we defeat them, they reincarnate into these Oni and we must fight them as well. We take out Warlord Katsumori first, who then reincarnates into the aforementioned War Oni. Once he's gone, we can then collect the Emperor's Sword, which is the first part in curing the Emperor. Next up, we need pure water. However, unfortunately, the Plague Oni has tainted all the waters of Mooshu. So in order for us to take down this Oni, we need to rebuild an item known as the Jade Scepter. This will allow us to purify the shrines and thus restore the pure water. Once done, we're able to head into Shirataki Temple, defeat Hideyoshi and the Plague Oni, and collect our pure water, which will allow us to cure the Emperor's mind. This leaves one last piece that we need. We need to cure the Emperor's body. In order to do this, we must take out the Death Oni, who has taken refuge in the Tree of Life. To get to the Tree of Life, we need to cross the Cursed River. Now, there is actually a specific way to do this. We can't just, you know, swim. In order to cross the Cursed River, we need to use a large spirit trapped in a spirit cage in order to help us cross. So first, we need to collect the spirit cage. So we head to the ancient burial grounds, enter the spirit world, defeat the spirit Tomogawa the Evil, and collect the spirit cage. First part done. Now we need to capture an evil spirit within the cage. But in order to do this, we need an item known as a soul chain in order to bind it. We enlist the help of a deceased forger known as Young B. And while she can't do it herself because, you know, she's dead, she does guide us perfectly in doing it ourselves. So we forge the soul chain. Now we need to collect a powerful evil spirit and trap it within the cage. Luckily, the spirit Oyotomi the Defiler has been plaguing the village of Sorrow recently. So we defeat him, trap him in the spirit cage, cross the Cursed River, head into the Tree of Life, and confront the Death Oni. After taking him down, this allows the Tree of Life to finally grow its fruit once again, which is the last piece that we need to cure the Emperor. We head back to the Jade Palace. However, upon attempting to cure the Emperor, in his weak state, he has been possessed by the Jade Oni, the most powerful of the Oni we have faced so far. So you know what we gotta do. After defeating the Jade Oni, the Emperor is cured. The Jade Champion gives us the Dragonspyre Spiral Key, and we then head to Dragonspyre to finally confront Malistaire once and for all. Now, Dragonspyre has a very long history, and I'm really lazy, so we go skip. Okay, obviously, we go straight to it. So in the very beginning, dragons and humans lived side by side, but humanity lived in constant fear that at any point the dragons could just absolutely destroy them. One night, King Mane met in secret with the queen of the drakes, Gavarena. They decided to make it so dragon and man would be allies once and for all. They teamed up, and together they would overcome the dragons and drive them out completely. With this, a new kingdom was born, and they named this kingdom Dragonspyre. Now, Dragonspyre continued to grow after King Mane's passing, and later on, King Jurgen expanded Dragonspyre's borders. Humans and drakes would work side by side to protect the kingdom, and for the moment, it was an age of peace. However, unfortunately, King Jurgen suddenly passed away with no children, and without an heir to the throne, Dragonspyre fell into a civil war that lasted 100 years. This would forever be known as the Century War. The war came to an end by the efforts of Kilgore the Magnificent and a drake named Lenneth the Great. These two teamed up in order to defeat a powerful black dragon in Dragonspyre's outer ring. Now, how they were able to win is unknown, but after this, Kilgore claimed the throne for himself and put an end to the Century War. Now, his rule brought a lot of changes to Dragonspyre, a lot of advancements in culture, and they started focusing heavily on science, from which came the creation of the knowledge crystals. Now, knowledge crystals are very important to Dragonspyre in its history. Knowledge crystals are some of the most powerful things in Wizard101 period. You can do things like store lesson plans inside of a knowledge crystal, things like how to fly a drake and how to take care of one and safety when flying, etc. But you can also do things like imbue your own soul into a knowledge crystal without actually having to die. Or even if somebody dies, you can still trap their soul within a knowledge crystal. You can even time travel with these motherfuckers. So now, King Kilgore became good friends with Aurelius Ambrosius, the leader of the Druidic tree minders. Aurelius gave King Kilgore 7 tree samplings from Ravenwood. This would allow him to plant the trees from the 7 schools of magic throughout Dragonspyre. And of course, they would become the trees of Dragonspyre Academy. To commemorate their friendship, Kilgore had a statue of Aurelius built to honor him, which is that big old statue you guys see in Dragonspyre Academy. That is my boy Aurelius. So generations passed, and the kingdom's knowledge remained locked away, only seen by people who were considered royalty. King Kilgore's descendants, King Betran and Prince Vigor, wanted to keep that tradition going in hopes that their secrets would not fall into unworthy hands. Now, this would inevitably backfire and be a horrible decision, because out of nowhere, an alchemic plague infected damn near everybody. This is literally a direct consequence of withholding knowledge from everyone except for royalty. Because I mean, I feel like if more people had access to knowledge through the knowledge crystals, maybe somebody would have been able to prevent this plague from happening. I don't know. So a man named Duke Sebastian came forward and fought with the monarchy for the right to search the knowledge crystals for a cure. He then sent a champion, Iona Pyrelance, to do battle against King Betran. Iona actually won, and because of this, Duke Sebastian was able to get the laws regarding knowledge crystals overturned. So now, instead of knowledge crystals only being reserved for royalty, now it would actually be accessible to the masses, and with this, Dragonspyre Academy was officially born. Because more people had access to the knowledge crystals, they were able to officially overcome the plague. So now the plague unfortunately did still cause a lot of damage to Dragonspyre, so Prince Vigor's main goal at this point was to return Dragonspyre to what it once was. Now how he decides to go about doing this is questionable. Prince Vigor decides to lead an entire army of soldiers into Ravenwood and conquer the tree minders there. This would obviously, you know, start a war with them, and this turned the tree minders, who were once a peaceful society of people, into an evil society who ended up becoming just as evil as the people that attacked them. With this war came massive casualties between both parties, and not even just that though, like Ravenwood's trees all got destroyed except for Bartleby, and Vigor's entire army lost and basically were all deceased. So yeah, nice playing, Prince Vigor, you really stuck it to him. The few surviving tree minders, on the other hand, were able to plant new magic trees in Ravenwood, which are the ones that we see today, and they buried their dead in the catacombs beneath Wizard City. The knowledge crystals that contain the record of these events will remain buried within the catacombs as well. Following this, Dragonspyre Academy would become the center of knowledge for the entirety of the kingdom. Also because, you know, they lost, Dragonspyre developed a very strong distaste for Wizard City. So I mentioned earlier that because of Duke Sebastian, the laws regarding knowledge crystals got overturned. And while this was a good thing, King Vigor's fear of them falling into the wrong hands weren't necessarily unwarranted. Why, you may ask? In order to understand why, we need to talk about an individual named Alderit the Usurper. See, Alderit was a graduate from Dragonspyre Academy who used his advanced knowledge from the knowledge crystals to dethrone the king of Dragonspyre at the time. His rule of the kingdom was very brutal and everybody pretty much hated him. Because of this led to the founding of the Great Council. The Great Council, or the Council of Wizards and Warriors, were a powerful group whose sole mission was to end Alderit's rule and take back Dragonspyre. Some of the members of the council included Katia Firewinter and Dranik the Shrouded Wizard. They attacked Alderit's palace. They were able to not only defeat him, but trap his soul safely within a knowledge crystal. After this, Dranik actually attempted to take the throne for himself, but yeah, Katia wasn't having that, so she killed him. So with all that out of the way now, Katia can finally work with the council and focus on creating a new government. The council would also now be officially known as the Council of Wizards and Warriors. Now, even though Alderit died, his influence did not. Kildare, who was one of the members of the Great Council, became corrupted by Alderit's knowledge crystal. Valeric Brightsword found out about this and killed him instantly. However, at this point, the damage had already been done, and fear began to set in amongst the rest of the members of the council. Later on, the power of the king diminished, and members of the council began to argue with each other over who's going to be in control. So people were becoming very fearful of the wizards in regards to their magic and the knowledge crystals that they had. This inspired a warrior by the name of Lion to lead a group of other warriors to demand control of all the spells in Dragonspyre. Now, whether he wanted to do this out of greed or he did it for the people, nobody knows. But either way, the council found out about this, and when they denied Lion, he betrayed the council. Lion challenged the leader of the wizards, Rurik Flamesoul, to a one-on-one fight, and after a very vicious battle, Rurik actually came out on top, and he would become the only wizard to best a warrior in open combat. With this win, the wizards were able to secure full control over all the magic in Dragonspyre, which now we have to talk about the fall of Dragonspyre. So time went on and there were a good amount of people who challenged the wizard's power. One of these individuals in particular just so happened to be the dean of admissions at Dragonspyre Academy, Vladimir Darkflame. Vladimir Darkflame decided that he wanted to take matters into his own hands. So first he gathers a group of conspirators, Andor Bristleback, Devora Shadowcrown, and Zora Steelwielder. His goal was to summon the Dragon Titan. So together they kidnapped all the Academy professors and began the summoning ritual for the Dragon Titan. Now shortly after this, everyone involved were all apprehended and detained inside the labyrinth, but by then it was too late. The Dragon Titan was here. The Dragon Titan summoned an entire army within the city walls and took everybody by surprise. And in a straight like Giga Chad power move, Boris Blackrock actually tried to just go up against the Dragon Titan himself, going in with not only his own strength, but also using the power of knowledge crystals as well. However, unfortunately, he would end up losing in the end, as with many others. To commemorate his sacrifice though, Boris became the last great hero to be buried inside the necropolis. At this point, there was literally no saving Dragonspyre, as the army advanced all the way into the Academy walls and they laid everything to waste. The only thing that was left were the Fire School and Ashley the Fire Tree. It's unknown as to why those two specifically were left, but it's assumed that the Dragon Titan seems to have a somewhat respect for the Fire School. It's also unknown as to when the Dragon Titan's attack officially ended, but after these events, the Dragon Titan became a giant stone statue wrapped around the volcano. We then fast forward to the modern day, and Malister was able to beat us here and almost has everything in place to revive his deceased wife with the help of the Dragon Titan. The Myth Professor Cyrus Drake, Malister's brother, is our key to taking out Malister once and for all. He informs us that Dragonspyre has 3 layers of security that we need to get through in order to get to Malister. Fortunately for us, the first layer is already open. We head to the library and we find out that in order to get through the second layer, we need a portal stone. So our first step is to head to the Tower Archives, where Dragonspyre portal stones were historically kept. After enlisting the help of a shady individual. Turns out he betrays us and the portal stone isn't even here. Dead end. Okay, so next we try to consult the Stonekeeper in the Plaza of Conquest. Fortunately, he is way more helpful and explains that we must first prove that we are worthy enough in order to collect the portal stone. We go and talk to his generals, and after a series of events and proving ourselves to him, we are given their recommendations. The Stonekeeper then informs us that he locked the portal stone away in the Grand Chasm before the Dragon Titan army attacked. So now, in order to acquire the stone, we need to travel back in time using a time crystal and go back just before the Dragon Titan army attacked. Find the Vault Keeper in order to get the key to the vault that the portal stone is inside. Take the key back to the present and head inside the vault that the portal stone is inside. We're successful in doing this, and afterwards we take the portal stone back to the Stonekeeper. He charges it for us, and we now have access to the second layer of security that Dragonspyre has. On the way, damn, I just smacked the fuck out. On the way there, Cyrus informs us that Malastare cared so deeply for his deceased wife that he brought her body with him to Dragonspyre and entombed her within the necropolis. He then tasked us, mind you, we're teenagers, with heading in there and finding her remains. Basically, his plan is that he wants us to use a knowledge crystal in order to trap her inside, so that when we do get to Malastare, we can use Sylvia's soul that's trapped within the crystal to hopefully convince Malastare to not do all this crazy shit. We find the ghost of Sylvia Drake, and we see that Malastare, for whatever reason, turned her into a wraith. It's actually really sad. At first, the ghost of Sylvia mistakes us for Malastare and says how she feels cold and alone. When she realizes we're not Malastare, though, she says even in death, she will not betray her husband. Unfortunately, we have to defeat her. Once done, we trap her spirit and head back to Cyrus. And even he is in utter disbelief that Malastare would do that. But we have to move forward, though. So in order for us to reach the third layer of security, we need to be enrolled into the Dragonspyre Academy School of Magic, which means we must take the trial of admittance. We head to the Drake Hatchery in the Crucible to learn about the history of the Drakes and Dragonspyre Academy itself. We're almost there. Now all we need is the portal stone and a written acceptance letter in order to gain access into Dragonspyre Academy. Luckily for us, these two things can be found in the same place. You guys remember the Dean from earlier? You know, the one that literally started the summoning ritual for the Dragon Titan? Unfortunately, he's legit our only ticket into the academy. He actually attempts to catch us off guard and use us to escape the labyrinth, but after I'm gonna be honest, a pretty hard fight, we managed to defeat him, obtaining his badge as a sign of acceptance, collecting the portal stone, and heading to Dragonspyre Academy. We are now at the final layer of security. Once we get into the academy, Ashley the Fire Tree informs us that Malastare is on top of the volcano in the headmaster's quarters at the moment, which means the only way to get there is to fly. So we need to become a dragon rider. In order to do this, we need an item known as the Dragon Rider's Staff. There's a problem though. The staff has been broken into 4 pieces scattered in chests around the spiral. Lord Nightshade's Tower in Wizard City, Bidian Arenia's Chamber in Krokotopia, Shake's Clock Tower in Marleybone, and the Crazed Forest Spirit in Mooshu. After obtaining the pieces, we head back to Dragonspyre to reassemble the staff. However, the staff needs a crystal head. The crystal head needs to be crafted by the crystal crafters in the Crystal Grove. Wow, that is a mouthful to say. After obtaining the head, we then finally forge the Dragon Rider Staff. We're almost there. The next step is that now we need a Drake. So we head back to the Drake Hatchery and hatch our own Drake egg. Now we need to learn how to fly a Drake. So we head to the forum in order to consult the knowledge crystals. The first knowledge crystal teaches us about the history of the Dragon Riders. The second one teaches us how to care for and feed a Drake. And the third knowledge crystal teaches us how to make sure we don't, fall to our death and die. However, when we head down to the third room, the third knowledge crystal is missing. Luckily, we do know where it is. Basically, some dude named Krasis had access to the knowledge crystals, and even though being instructed not to remove them, we took one of them anyway. We bop him, take the knowledge crystal back, learn how to fly a Drake once and for all, and all that's left is to forge the armor for the Drake. Once that's done, it's finally time to fly to the top of the volcano to take down Malastare once and for all. Once we arrive, Malastare is already in the process of reviving the Dragon Titan. However, we interrupt him and show him the knowledge crystal with the spirit of his wife that we collected earlier. However, unfortunately, this plan fails as Malastare just assumes that this is all a facade, meaning that the only way to stop him is to defeat him once and for all. And after a long fought battle, Malastare is taken down, and we get a very heartfelt moment with him and his wife. Malastare believes that he failed his wife Sylvia, as in the end, everything he did and all that he went through was so he could bring her back. Sylvia reassures him though that she's in a better place now and she wants him to go with her. They then both leave and finally can live peacefully in the afterlife together. We head back to Merle Ambrose to break the news, and we get sent back to our classes and our studies, and that concludes the first arc of Wizard101. Woo! Okay, let's reflect a little bit and I'm gonna give my thoughts. Arc 1 of Wizard101 is incredible to me and is still to this day easily the best arc of the game. It's legit to me the only arc where you feel a genuine sense of urgency with everything going on. Every world you go through in the first arc feels like it has a purpose, especially when you're following the story. The story writing in Arc 1 is fantastic, and even a lot of the side quests in certain worlds are fantastic as well, because a lot of it is extra lore that is actually pivotal to understanding the world that you're in and how it came to be in the first place. But the story, man, the overall story of Arc 1 is just fuck, it's good. This story was written all the way back in what, like 2007? And this is the type of story writing that AAA titles today absolutely struggle with. As a kid, obviously I didn't understand what was going on, but as a fully grown man, I genuinely shed a tear watching that final cutscene. Also, one of the most chilling moments is finding the ghost of Sylvia Drake. That was something else. But all right, I'm done. I'm not gonna ramble anymore because I'm probably gonna be doing a lot of that in the part 4 video anyway. So I just want to say, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Wizard101 is genuinely like my favorite game of all time, and I would be doing myself a disservice if I didn't make a video like this. Like I said earlier, this is part 1 of a 4-part series. We will be going through the entire story, I promise you. That being said, I appreciate everybody for being here. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Oh my god!